Hi, I'm Aaron. I'd like to read you the story of Saint Benedict from this book, Stories of the Saints by Carrie Wallace with pictures by Nick Thornborough. One day, Benedict came home to the small house in Italy that he shared with the old woman who had nursed him as a child, and discovered her crying over a broken sieve. She had borrowed it, and because it broke she was ashamed to give it back. Moved by her tears, Benedict took the sieve and prayed. And when he handed the old sieve back to her, it was all in one piece. The people in town were so astonished that they hung the sieve up by the door of the church for everyone to see. But Benedict wanted to spend more time alone, to pray and seek God, and he was old enough now to live on his own, so he wandered out of town, where he met a monk named Romanus, who led Benedict to a cave near a lake under the cliff where Romanus's monastery stood. Benedict moved into the cave, where he wore animal skins instead of clothes, and spent his days in prayer. Every now and then Romanus would bring him bread. But when the abbot of the monastery on the cliff died, the monks came down to Benedict. "Please, be our new abbot," they begged him. "You won't like me," Benedict told them. "I'll be too strict for you." But the monks insisted, so Benedict went with them. Just as he'd warned, the monks hated following Benedict's rules, so they poisoned his wine and bread. But when Benedict bowed his head to bless his meal, the cup broke, spilling all the poisoned wine, and a raven flew in to carry off the poisoned loaf. By then, Benedict had had enough of that monastery, so he left it and began to found monasteries of his own, 12 of them, all over Rome. One day, a poor man came to Benedict's monastery, begging for a cup of oil. Benedict always gave anything he had to anyone who asked, so he told the monk in charge of the stores to give the man some oil. But all the monastery had left was 1 cup of oil, so the monk kept it and sent the man away. When Benedict heard about this, he was furious. He knelt down in the kitchen by the monastery's big jar of oil to pray. As he did, a bubbling sound came from the jar. The monks all watched in wonder as the empty jar became full, so full that oil began to leak under the lid and finally popped the cover right off, so that new oil spilled all over the floor. Another day, a boy named Placidus was sent to draw water for the monastery, but he fell into the lake and drifted into deep water. In his cell, Benedict realized something was wrong, so he called the monk Maurus. "Placidus has fallen into the lake," he told him. "Go rescue him." Maurus ran all the way to the lake, but at the banks he didn't stop. He ran straight across the water to Placidus, who was thrashing around and crying for help. Standing on the surface of the water just as if it were dry land, Maurus seized Placidus and dragged him back to shore. It wasn't until he reached the land that Maurus realized that the whole time he'd been carrying Placidus to safety, he'd been walking on the water. From Benedict's monastery on top of Monte Cassino, where the temple of Apollo had once stood, he wrote a book on how to pray and work. He divided the day into 3 equal parts: 8 hours to sleep, 8 hours to work, and 8 hours to pray. But prayer was the most important part. Every few hours in the monastery, bells would ring, and everyone would stop everything they were doing, no matter what it was, to pray. And the rules that Benedict wrote still guide the lives of thousands and thousands of monks all over the world today. Thanks for listening.